I never thought I'd be this guy, the one telling a story that sounds like it's ripped from a daytime TV show. But life has a funny way of throwing you into a script you never wanted to be in. It all started with a simple text message, one that wasn't meant for me. My wife Sarah and I had been married for 12 years. We had 2 amazing kids, a nice house in the suburbs, and what I thought was a happy life. We were high school sweethearts. I thought I knew everything about her. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday night. The kids were asleep and I was on the couch half watching some sports documentary. Sarah was upstairs, supposedly taking a bath. Her phone, which was charging on the coffee table, buzzed. I glanced over. It was from a contact named Work Project. The message preview read, "Can't stop thinking about last night." My heart stopped. My heart stopped. Work Project? Sarah was a freelance graphic designer. Her projects had names like Miller Account or Brighton Realty. Never something as vague as Work Project. My mind started racing. Last night she'd told me she was working late at her shared office space to meet a deadline. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't stop myself. My hands were shaking as I picked up her phone. Her password was our anniversary. The irony hit me like a ton of bricks. I opened the message thread. It wasn't just one message. It was weeks of them, months even. The messages painted a picture of a life I wasn't part of. Romantic dinners, secret getaways, and declarations of love. Work Project was a man named Mark. And from the photos they'd exchanged, he was a guy from her gym. I'd even met him once or twice. He'd shaken my hand, smiled, and asked about my kids. The air in my lungs felt thick, heavy. I scrolled and scrolled, each message a new stab in the gut. They talked about me. How I was predictable. How I was a good dad, but a boring husband. How she felt alive with him in a way she hadn't felt in years. I felt a wave of nausea. I put the phone down, walked to the bathroom, and splashed cold water on my face. Looking in the mirror, I didn't recognize the man staring back. His eyes were wide with a mix of fury and devastation. My first instinct was to storm upstairs, throw the phone at her, and scream. But then, a different thought crept in. A cold, calculating thought. Screaming would give her the satisfaction of a fight. It would let her play the victim, twist the narrative. No, she didn't deserve an easy way out. She had built a secret life behind my back, smiling to my face while she was betraying me. She had called me predictable. Fine, I would be anything but. The next morning, I woke up before her. I made coffee, packed the kids' lunches, and acted completely normal. "Morning, honey," I said, kissing her cheek as she came into the kitchen. Her smile was effortless. It made my stomach turn. "Morning, babe."
Yeah.
"You're up early," she said, wrapping her arms around my neck. It felt like a snake coiling around me.
That day I went to a lawyer. Not to file for divorce. Not yet.
I went for information. I learned about marital assets, custody, and the legal process in our state. Ow. Knowledge was power, and I needed all the power I could get. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Mrs. Davis, advised me to gather evidence. Concrete evidence. So I became a detective in my own life. I put a keylogger on our home computer. I installed a small, voice-activated recorder in her car. It felt slimy, like I was violating her privacy. But then I remembered she had already shattered mine into a million pieces. The keylogger was the first to pay off. Sarah used the home computer for her banking and personal emails. I discovered she had a separate credit card, one I knew nothing about. The statements were a roadmap of her affair. Hotel charges, expensive restaurant bills, even a purchase from a jewelry store. He'd bought her a bracelet. A bracelet I saw her wear once, which she claimed she'd bought for herself as a work bonus. The car recorder was even more damning. I'd listened to the recordings after she and the kids were asleep. I heard her phone calls with Mark. They'd laugh, they'd plan, they'd talk about their future together. In one recording, she said, "Just a little longer. I'm figuring out the best way to tell him. I want to make sure I get the house and the kids." That was the moment my sadness turned to ice. This wasn't just a fling. This was a calculated plan. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to dismantle my life and take everything I held dear. She thought I was a fool she could easily manipulate. So I began to set the stage. I started moving my personal savings into a new, separate account. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was mine, earned from freelance work I did on the side. I meticulously documented every piece of evidence, screenshots of the texts, the credit card statements, the audio files. I made multiple backups, storing them online, and on a physical drive I kept in my office desk drawer. For the next 2 months, I played the part of the perfect, oblivious husband. I was more attentive, suggested date nights. I bought her flowers. Each gesture was a carefully placed move on a chessboard she didn't even know we were playing on. Her guilt, I noticed, made her more affectionate. Or maybe she was just laying the groundwork for her exit, trying to make it seem like she'd tried. Mark, the work project, was becoming more impatient. I heard it in their recorded calls. He wanted her to leave me. When are you going to end it? He'd ask. She'd soothe him, telling him the timing had to be perfect. The timing was going to be perfect. All right. But it was going to be my perfect. Our 13th anniversary was coming up. Sarah, in a grand gesture of her own deception, planned a big party. She invited all our friends and family. Let's celebrate us, she'd said, her eyes sparkling. It was the perfect venue. The day of the party, our house was filled with people. Laughter, music, the smell of barbecue. Sarah was glowing, the gracious host. She was wearing the bracelet Mark had bought her. At one point, she pulled me aside and whispered, "I love you so much. Thank you for this life." I just smiled. Later in the evening, when everyone was gathered in the living room for a toast, Sarah stood up. She raised her glass. "I'd like to say a few words," she began. She talked about our years together, our journey. It was a beautiful speech, a complete lie. When she finished, everyone clapped. They all turned to me, expecting me to say something. "Honey, your turn," Sarah said, beaming at me. I stood up, holding my champagne glass. I looked around the room at the faces of our friends, our family, my parents, her parents. "Thank you all for coming," I started. My voice was steady. 13 years. It's a long time. And in 13 years, you really get to know a person. You learn their hopes, their dreams, and their secrets. A few people chuckled nervously. Sarah's smile tightened just a fraction. Sarah mentioned our journey. I continued, looking directly at her. And it has been a journey, full of surprises. For instance, I recently discovered my wife has a passion for side projects, very demanding ones. One of them is even named Mark. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Sarah's face went white. "Yes, Mark," I said, my voice getting louder. "The guy from her gym. They've had their own journey. Dinners, weekends away. Even bought her that lovely bracelet she's wearing tonight. A very generous work colleague, isn't he?" I saw her parents looking at her, their faces a mixture of confusion and horror. "But don't worry," I said, holding up a hand. "I wouldn't make such a claim without evidence." I pulled my phone out of my pocket, connected it to the Bluetooth speaker we were using for music, and hit play. The first thing that filled the room was Sarah's voice, crystal clear, from the car recorder. "I want to make sure I get the house and the kids," she was saying to Mark. Gasps echoed through the living room. Sarah looked like she was going to collapse, tried to say something, but no words came out. I stopped the recording. "There's more," I announced calmly. "Months of texts, credit card statements for secret hotel rooms. It's all been sent to my lawyer. And, just a few minutes ago, to all of you." A wave of phone chimes and buzzes swept the room as dozens of people checked their emails. I had scheduled it to send the moment I started speaking. An email with a link to a password-protected cloud folder containing everything. The password was predictable. Her father stood up, his face red with anger, and looked at his daughter with utter disgust. Her best friend, who was standing beside her, slowly backed away. I turned back to Sarah. Her fake world had crumbled around her in less than 5 minutes, in front of everyone she knew. There were no more lies to hide behind. "Our marriage is over, Sarah," I said, my voice devoid of the rage I'd held in 4 months. All I felt was a cold, quiet finality. "You wanted to make sure you got the house and the kids? Well, good luck explaining this calculated affair to a judge. You called me predictable. I hope this was anything but." I put my glass down on the table, walked through the stunned crowd, and went upstairs to check on my sleeping children. My kids, the only thing that mattered. The house was quiet now, the partygoers trickling out in stunned silence. Downstairs I could hear Sarah sobbing. It was a sound I'd dreaded for months, but now it just sounded distant. It wasn't a happy ending. My marriage was over, and my family was broken. But I took back control. I refused to be a victim in my own life. The divorce was messy, but the evidence was overwhelming. I got custody of the kids and the house. She underestimated me. She thought I was just a boring, predictable husband. But a man will do unpredictable things when he's fighting for his life, and my kids are my life. Thanks for listening to my story. It's a tough world out there, so stay sharp and always trust your gut. Take care.